techniques that I just described will work for a bow drill, for a hand drill, for a pump drill, for a pull drill, anything with a spindle and a fireboard where your spindle's burning through too quick. That could be due to the thickness of the spindle, could be due to how much downward pressure you're giving. But another thing to check is how soft is your fireboard, how soft is the spindle, which one can you change out the easiest. Obviously I couldn't change out the spindle here because my whole setup was designed around it. I mean, I could, but it would take longer. The easier thing to change was the fireboard. So instead of going with the yucca fireboard, I switched to a cedar fireboard. Yeah, before we waste it. Yeah, that is not a very good spindle. So this is what I was talking about on density of spindles and fireboards. See how fibrous that is and how fibrous and light colored that powder is? That means this spindle may not work. I actually may try a cedar and see if I can get it to work there, because it'll be a greater density. Okay, so that worked good. We went with, because we had a softer spindle, we realized it was not working out well. You can look at that dust. You see how it never did brown, and it was really fibrous. Most of that was coming from the spindle. So I carved it down, and it was burning through this fireboard, this yucca fireboard, way too fast. And I wasn't getting the black dust that I needed, so I switched. Because the spindle was soft, I switched to a harder fireboard, which I used cedar. And that worked good because it polished it off, but it still retained enough friction to burn up this dust. Plus the dust that was coming out, you see these big chunks here? You don't want that. You want to make sure that it is nice and powdery. And it's not saying that that won't work, but that's an indication that your spindle's boring through your fireboard because the fireboard's too soft, or that the spindle's too soft and it's just dissolving into the fireboard. And I think I was having a combination of the two. Switched to a harder fireboard. Even though the spindle was super soft and fibrous, it was enough to kind of powder up the fibers that were coming off so that they would fill the notch, and they were turning brown at first, so that was a good indication. Then they started to turn black, and that's an even better indication that you're about to get a coal. And you could see the smoke just rolling around the spindle, so it wasn't getting stuck in the fireboard. Even though I had a shorter line, instead of having 12 inches, I only had 11 inches of line of travel. That still worked because I was able to get a lot of RPMs. And this weight is 1.1 pounds for that size of spindle, so that worked pretty well. I was actually, the part of the spindle that I carved down smaller actually burned away first and created the powder, and so I was able to use this larger spindle for this pump drill, and I didn't have to use cordage to keep the weight in place because I carved down the spindle so that I could fit it and it would get stuck on the spindle itself. So that's good. That's a good combination.